change.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer. We should have won 4 more seats in the Senate. If you looked at the last 70 races for the Senate, 69 follow exactly the way.
I think it's Moore versus Youngkin. That's where I see it.
Youngkin would be. It's going to go back to
adjacent, and then Vance and Jr. will fight it out for that crowd.
AOC and Bernie, and who's at the top of the ticket?
They're going to lead right now.
Who's at the top of that ticket, Kevin? Because if it's not Bernie, he's going to be vice president and then wait his turn?
No, it would be. Bernie's been running each time. I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. You know, when I started...
No, but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money.
Okay, everyone. Gather your popcorn and keep your hats on because Bill Maher is back with some brilliant observations. Maher's ruthlessly critical comments on the Democratic Party are sure to draw attention, just when you thought political criticism had peaked.
And who do you see on the horizon for 2028 in the Democratic primary?
Right now?
Yeah.
Bernie and AOC.
No.
They got the biggest crowds.
That doesn't matter.
It won't sustain itself, but right now they have no leader. Okay? But this is the thing the Republican Party has to understand too. Both parties lost in the last election. Trump won, okay? And I don't know if that's going to transfer. We should have won 4 more seats in the Senate. If you look at the last 70 races for the Senate, 69 follow exactly the way.
I think it's Moore versus Youngkin. That's where I see it.
Youngkin would be.
Youngkin is going to go back adjacent, and then Vance and Jr. will fight it out for that crowd.
AOC and Bernie, and who's at the top of the ticket?
They're going to lead right now.
Who's at the top of that ticket, Kevin? Because if it's not Bernie, he's going to be vice president and then wait his turn?
No, it would be. Bernie's been running each time. I'm just saying who's in the lead right now. I don't think that's how it ends up.
But big crowds don't necessarily mean who's the right candidate. You know, when I started...
No, but it drives where the ideas are going to go. It's going to drive the money for a while.
It doesn't make it...
Indeed, we are delving into the improbable 2028 presidential campaign of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. And people, Bill Maher isn't holding back. He dissects the hysteria around AOC's purported audience appeal, explaining why it may seem appealing on social media, but may not always result in real political victories.
What do you think of the fact that the people who are getting the big crowds right now are AOC and Bernie Sanders? They're going around the country. Thank you, there's that same guy. I call him the always wrong guy. Okay, but I feel like, big crowds, again, the shiny object that the Democrats chase. It's not about the big crowds that come out to you when you're talking in a festival or wherever they are. I think it's because I think Bernie showed up at Coachella. That must have been fun for the fans. It's who shows up on election day. And I just don't think that's the ticket. I mean, Cory Booker, I know you've worked with him. I like Cory a lot from my home state of New Jersey. Made a speech for 25 hours. Again, just whacking each other off. This is just not what's going to get the job.
The next section is the one you should focus on. Maher explores how the Democrats are falling short, mistaking actual leadership and tangible influence with social media hype that goes viral.
The Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't. But she's AOC, very far left.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that. Because because people will vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket. Because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think that, Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and Fetterman is because it's irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down.
It's very unexpected. The Sanders-AOC 2028 campaign failed on election day in spite of all the hype, well-known endorsements, and a devoted following. And there's no holding back from Bill Maher. He highlights what he perceives to be a stark reality. Although today's Democratic celebrities may seem genuine, This is often a front. Is style more important than substance in these political personas? So Maher believes. He thinks that's precisely where Democrats continue to make mistakes. Click the subscribe button if you value candid conversations and daring opinions. Did you already? You are legendary. Greetings from the team. Let's go back to the action with Maher's AOC takedown. Maher attacks both Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Although they have crowds, clicks, and excitement, Maher contends that these factors do not equate to electability. He believes that Democrats are suffering as a result of their pursuit of viral moments rather than true leadership, and that spectacle is more important than strategy.
She was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies that it implies that in some way she's behind the eight ball because of that, and it's just not true. And so
I don't know if she's behind the eight ball, but I don't think she's as privileged as many people who are in Congress right now.
Is that privileged or not? She was a bartender.
Yeah.
You know, so I was a
delivery
boy.
But I'm saying sometimes, Bill, you don't agree with Donald Trump's policies.
No.
But that's what the people want.
Some of them.
Whether you like her or not, I don't like what she did with Amazon in New York, but I think AOC she's a Democratic.
Imagine large gatherings and constant social media activity, but what about really interacting with regular Americans? AOC isn't doing that, according to Bill Maher. He contends that despite her rapid ascent in politics, she lacks empathy for the struggles faced by everyday people. The problem with authenticity highlights a discrepancy between AOC's narrative and her actual upbringing. Although she often discusses having a difficult childhood, Maher asserts that her background was more middle class than she implies. He charges her of embellishing her background in order to get sympathy. His remarks are generating a lot of discussion, whether you agree with them or not.
Interviews was when AOC was talking to that lady and she asked her to expand
about Israel-Palestine.
Oh my God.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist.
She just collapsed into herself.
It's literally like a fifth grader that didn't study.
Look at that incident more through just as an incident.
And then they ask you about the subject, or you didn't read the book. Well, you know, it's about Billy and his dog.
What people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is...
But the crazy thing about that interview is that her first comment comes off with, total authority.
I am a proponent of a two-state solution.
One little follow-up question. The question's like, well, what do you mean by that? And then you just see her get weaker and weaker.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
But what do you mean about that? It's like, I don't know what I'm talking about, man. Yeah. She literally goes, I'm really not the expert.
Do you think you can expand on that? I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
In his criticism of AOC's genuineness, Maher notes that the difficulties she often draws attention to may not accurately represent the state of the Latino population as a whole in a multicultural and forward-thinking metropolis like New York. He implies that rather than being a true representation of real experience, her account seems more like political play.
Dilemma for Democrats. Their young people, their key constituency, not only don't like their own civilization, they like the wrong one. They actually think Hamas is a liberation movement. They chant for the Houthis. They're chanting, we will honor our martyrs at Yale. They're looking for love in all the wrong countries. At an AOC Bernie Sanders rally in Idaho last month, someone threw a Palestinian flag over an American flag, and the crowd erupted in approval. What should have happened after that is one of the adults on stage should have told their young loyal followers, this is not a symbol of freedom. This is.
Bill Maher contends that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has distanced herself from the average voter despite her enormous platform. He contends that her tales often seem like scripted storylines rather than ones that connect with the typical American. According to Maher, this reduces her leadership efficacy. He reminds us that popularity does not necessarily translate into electability by contrasting her with previous Democratic candidates who were boosted by the media and celebrities, but eventually lost in the polls.